In a forgotten corner of a secluded village stood a dilapidated old house, a place the locals whispered about with a mix of fear and reverence. They called it the House of Jinn. For decades, it had been a husk of a home. Yet tales persisted of strange noises piercing the stillness of the night. On moonless evenings, villagers swore they saw eerie lights flicker and dance behind its grimy, broken windows, even though the house had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. The stories were a challenge, a dare whispered among the brave and the foolish. Two young men, fueled by a potent mix of skepticism and youthful bravado, decided they would be the ones to finally debunk the legend. One evening, as twilight bled into darkness, they pushed open the groaning front door and stepped into the suffocating silence. The air was thick with the scent of decay and forgotten time. Their flashlight beams cut through the gloom, revealing rooms shrouded in dust and draped with the intricate lacework of cobwebs. It was disappointingly ordinary, exactly what you'd expect from an old, abandoned building. They laughed, their voices echoing unnervingly in the stillness. "See, just an old house," one said, his voice a little too loud. Their search for the supernatural led them down a flight of creaky wooden stairs into the basement. The air grew colder, clinging to their skin, and that's when they saw them. Carved into the damp stone walls were several small, arched doors, no taller than a child. They looked like secret passages to another world. The first young man, ever the Joker, nudged his friend. "Hey, maybe this is where the treasure is hidden. Forget the ghosts, let's get rich." He let out a nervous chuckle, the sound swallowed by the oppressive quiet. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the air, echoing from deep within one of the dark passages. It was a sound of pure terror, sharp and raw, and it froze them in their tracks. Their hearts hammered against their ribs, and the bravado they'd felt moments ago evaporated into a cold dread. For a moment, they stood paralyzed. But curiosity, that powerful and often foolish human impulse, won out over fear. They had to know what made that sound. They chose a passage and cautiously stepped inside. The further they ventured into the narrow tunnel, the darker it became, until their flashlights were just small, trembling circles in an ocean of black. The air grew heavy, pressing in on them, making each breath a conscious effort. Then their light caught something on the wall. Red, it was writing, scrawled across the stone as if painted with fresh, wet blood. The symbols were ancient and unrecognizable, but the message was clear. They were not welcome here. The second young man's voice was a ragged whisper, trembling with a terror he could no longer hide. "We need to go, now. Let's get out of here." They turned, scrambling back the way they came, their feet stumbling in the dark. But when they reached the spot where the entrance should have been, there was no opening. The small door was gone. In its place stood a solid wall, and mounted upon it was a massive, ornate mirror that stretched from floor to ceiling. Panic began to set in. They were trapped. One of the young men, desperate, approached the mirror, hoping to find a latch or a seam. He stared at his own reflection, his face pale and slick with sweat. But then, something impossible happened. His reflection smiled. It was a wicked, predatory grin that didn't belong on his face. And then, the reflection's hand began to move, reaching out from inside the glass, its fingers stretching through the cold surface as if it were water. Before he could scream, the hand grabbed his shirt and pulled. He was dragged forward, his feet scrabbling for purchase. His friend lunged, grabbing his arms, trying to pull him back from the mirror's horrifying grip. But the force was immense, relentless. With a final, sickening lurch, the mirror swallowed him whole, the glass rippling and then settling into a perfect, undisturbed reflection. Once more, he was gone. The remaining young man was left alone, screaming his friend's name, pounding his fists against the unyielding glass until his knuckles were raw and bloody. He stared into the mirror, his own face contorted in a mask of horror and grief. And then he saw it. His own reflection began to smile, that same devilish grin. It slowly raised its hand, extending it toward him from the other side of the glass. In that final, terrifying instant, the world plunged into total, suffocating darkness. Neither of them ever emerged from that house again. The legend of the House of Jinn grew darker, its reputation cemented in tragedy. And to this day, anyone who dares to approach the old, decrepit house at night swears they can see something in the highest window. Two shadowy figures, trapped behind the glass, their hands pressed against it, waving frantically as if begging for help, forever prisoners of the mirror. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If you enjoy stories that explore the darkness, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there.